So chapter 11 is all about advertising. Let's take a look. First, we all know what advertising is, but here's a more complete definition. It's any form of non-personal communication about something, an organization, a product, a service, or even ideas. And this message is brought to you by a group with a purpose or an agenda, and they sponsor the communication and usually identify themselves. Advertising has been a driving force in our consumer economy for more than 100 years and has established itself as an essential component to our way of life. We become informed about the world, products that can make our lives run more smoothly, and it gives us information on the identities we can have and allows us to essentially be who we want to be by choosing products that coincide with our desires. So let's look at some of the components that created consumer culture. Industrialization allowed for products to be mass-produced and brought people together in the cities to work and to be advertised to. There were new needs to be fulfilled by a very diverse group of consumers. Steam power and electricity enabled this transition to the Industrial Revolution and began this great homogenization of cultural identity. These messages about cultural identity were carried through advertisements in the penny press, then magazines, then each new medium as it emerged. As a result of this new industrial age, society began to modernize. We no longer had to be born into a role in life and stay there for the remainder of our life. People could choose who they wanted to be, and their identity could be purchased by obtaining products that fit into the message that they wanted to believe about themselves and that would help them have others perceive them the way that they wanted. Modernization was a shift in culture to people choosing how they would represent themselves to the world, and it was much easier to change who you were because at the time there was an economy of abundance that was emerging. And most anything you wanted was available to you through a department store or a catalog, like now. And there were as many goods or more goods as there were people to buy them. So you just had to choose which clothes to purchase that expressed who you are, which soap resonated with your values, and which home furnishings defined your house. And before this time, most everything was locally or handmade. And now mass production had allowed for this mass appeal of styles and trends and identity. So a farm boy could come to New York City and reinvent himself into a businessman. And that's kind of what happened in a lot of places. So out of this mass marketing of identity, the brand name was born. And these brand names were tied to an identity and attached to values and to products on a national level. With the coming of the Transcontinental Railroad, a single brand could now be marketed and shipped throughout the entire nation, prepackaged, and be exactly the same everywhere it was sold. Some of the earliest brand names were Quaker Oats, which consumers trusted to be the same wherever they purchased and identified that brand with pleasure, health, and pure values of the Quakers, and then Pear's soap, which ran comical taglines and gained attention. So these products were marketed very different than in the past, as they did not advertise where to buy them, but they only advertised the products themselves, which was a new thing. People knew where to get them in their communities, and the increase in demand created a situation where stores would carry them because they sold. Advertising got people into stores, helped them identify which products could help them in their lives, and supported the media that informed the public. Beginning with the penny press in the 1830s, and the new model for subsidizing paper costs with advertising to offer it at a lower rate to the consumer, and in turn broadening the reach of advertisers through circulation, the idea of media-supported advertising took off. It bled over into consumer magazines, which went national when the railroad system went into place, and a new model was born out of this transition to creating publications in order to round up certain demographics for advertisers. Instead of looking at the magazine as a product for the people, people were looked at as a product for advertisers. And then into radio and television. Naturally, they went in the same direction. sometimes with entire programs being sponsored by corporate identities. The Maxwell House Hour, General Motors Family Party, and even places where events took place took on advertising names like Wrigley Stadium, etc. And this is still practiced today, like the Target Center in Minneapolis. So advertisers created a situation where the brand names became mentioned in everyday conversation in households across the nation. Consumer advertising is not the only type of advertising. There are different types. So local advertising is like local insurance agents who try to get people in their community to notice that their business is there, and they keep their advertising within their area and hope that the community will support them. And national advertising, which builds the demand for a product or service nationally, usually without telling you where to buy it. It gives you the information, and through your knowledge of your community, you can usually identify where to find it. A newer trend is to offer some products in limited supply at only one national location, and this came about with the rise of franchise companies. So you'll see advertisements that say, only at Walmart, but national ads are more general, and they usually have some type of mass appeal to them. Another type of consumer advertising is direct action messages, which are designed to get consumers to respond with a certain behavior. These include catchphrases like, hurry down today, or radio promotions where you have to arrive at the store and sign up to win an item, or if you clip a coupon. It's usually a way that the seller creates a sense of urgency that causes the consumer to act in some way, limited time only. An indirect action message builds the image of a product or service in consumer minds, but does not use pressure like a direct action message does. It creates an idea about a product, like Subaru is a good sturdy car and they care about the planet. And if I drive one, people will identify me with this type of person that drives a Subaru. And then your Mitsubishi breaks down and you purchase a Subaru instead. So it's building the identity of a product with indirect messages. Beyond consumer advertising, there are other types that promote things other than products, like ideas, political campaigns, etc. So advocacy advertising promotes a point of view, like the anti-smoking ad campaigns or political campaigns. There's usually no product unless you count the politicians and organizations as a product. And advocacy ads are sponsored by organizations, government groups, nonprofits, and corporations. Public service advertising informs us of messages by nonprofit institutions and government agencies. The book highlights some of the most successful public service ads like Smokey the Bear and McGruff the Crime Dog. Public service ads usually promote an ideal that will benefit society in some way, but not even them come without an agenda of some sort. The Ad Council is responsible for public service announcements, and they got their start in 1942 as the War Ad Council. And they were the designers of Rosie the Riveter, the girl, the We Can Do It ads with her, she's flexing her muscle. And those worked as propaganda to support the war effort. And while the Ad Council is seen as credible, their agenda falls in with what someone's idea about what would be good for America is. So even with them, we must be critical. Even though we trust the Ad Council to give us good information that benefits society, we still have to be critical of the message because it began as a propaganda tool. Trade advertising is ads designed to sell products and services from one business to another, and these ads are usually found in trade magazines and catalogs designed for business-specific information, and many consumer products are remarketed in this way. Like if you look at a trade magazine for police officers, you'll see many advertisements for cars that have been redesigned into police cruisers. In the advertising business, there are 4 levels or groups that must be considered before an ad is placed. And one is the client, which is the company that has something to sell. Then usually an agency of advertising professionals comes together to figure out what that client needs and wants and the message of their product or service. And they design the campaign, decide which media formats would be best and when and where to place the ads. They're the specialists that really understand advertising. And then the media vessel that carries the ad to the audience, which can include TV, radio, print, internet, and even projections on buildings and spray-painted guerrilla advertising. Then, finally, the audience, made up of many different demographic, geographic, and psychographic backgrounds, receives that message. So here are top advertisers in the United States by brand. And you can see that they're all biggies. The ones that advertise the most sell the most, it seems like, just by getting their name known. So let's take a quick look at agencies, their function in this process of getting the message out. First, there's a time of research and planning, and an advertising agency looks at ways to meet a client's objectives, what messages they want to send out and to whom. They identify the characteristics of the target audience through focus groups and surveys and observation, and then they take that information and figure out how to use those values of the target group to increase awareness of the product or service, which usually leads to an increase in sales. Then you have creative activity of the agency, and this is the process of creating a feeling or attaching an ideal to the product or service through visual and audio media usually. And creative creates the things that will tap into the ideals and values of the target demographic during the research and planning. Another thing that agencies do is calculate which medium would be most cost-effective for the type of product, service, and client, where the ads should be placed to get the most bang for your buck. A successful ad campaign increases revenue for the company advertising by spending the least amount of money possible. So let's look at the different media for advertising. Newspapers are the old school original medium, but recently have taken hits in circulation with the proliferation of the internet. But they are still the third largest advertising medium and serve as one of the main mediums for local advertising. And they're also more suitable for complicated advertisements like grocery prices, and they can facilitate coupons and allow advertisers to place an ad at the last minute for immediate dissemination, unlike magazines, which cater to a more specific demographic, niche audiences, and also trade ads or business to business. And they have better print quality and lend themselves to more visually appealing ads. But you usually cannot place an ad in a magazine at the last minute. There's more planning time involved in the publications than in a daily newspaper. So another advantage is placement. Advertisers can place their ads next to images or articles that might pertain to their product or service, such as diabetes medicine next to an article about diabetes. Outdoor advertising, like billboards, electronic billboards, and signage on buildings, subways, bus, taxis, everywhere outside, compose the outdoor advertising market. And these types of advertising are placed in high traffic areas, and prices are based on how many people will be passing through to see it. And these can be very effective and reach a really diverse audience. And the effectiveness of outdoor advertising can go down as the amount of ads go up. When you get a whole bunch of ads in one area, it adds to the visual clutter and your advertisement might not get seen. Radio advertising is similar to magazine advertising because you have this narrow demographic that can be reached, and the audience is captive because they're usually in their car, and radio ads are usually relatively low cost. Television is still one of the most popular mediums for advertisers. They reach a mass, diverse audience quickly and focus on narrower demographics as needed through certain programs or channels. And the effectiveness of TV ads is in decline with the advent of the DVR. People can fast forward or pause or rewind or not watch it. And when there's too many ads, you get that clutter problem where only a few messages will be picked up by the consumer. TV ads are one of the most expensive mediums to advertise on because you have production costs and airtime and placement time, and it can get really, really spendy. The internet is the new frontier of advertising, and they can really tailor your ad experiences right down to keywords that you type into Google and Bing. And ads on the internet are relatively cheap to place, and some work on a click-through system that charges the advertiser a small fee every time you click on their ad. And the fee that the advertiser pays is then split with the host site, like Google, and then the web page owner who allowed the advertisements to be placed on their page. It's kind of like if you monetize a YouTube video. The latest trend is short video commercials we are forced to watch before we have access to the content we want to see, like on YouTube when you want to watch a video and first you have to watch 20 seconds of an ad from Nike. So the consumer-specific advertising that is happening on the web is part of that long-tail advertising that is evolving through the long-tail market. People in the advertising business have long tried to define who audiences were through a variety of research techniques and tests, and this defining of the audience is known as targeting. Targeting an audience for a product helps them tailor a message that the group desires, and in turn helps the group identify with that product. Demographics, geographics, and psychographics are some ways people are quantified. Demographics relates to income, race, sex, age, religion, and the surface of things that define certain segments of the population and make them similar. Geographics deals with where people live, urban versus rural, that sort of idea, and how those people are similar or have common bonds. Psychographics is one of the newer techniques that arose in the 70s and began to find its way into marketing and other facets of promotion in the early 80s. Psychographics attempts to measure lifestyles through VALS, which stands for Values, Attitudes, and Lifestyles, and it looks at who the audience is and what motivates them. And the VALS system analyzes where people are at in their life, the relationships they have with certain products, and their personality traits. There are 8 categories designed by SRI International Strategic Business Insights. So VALS is an analysis of people based on motivation and resources. So what do people want, and do they have the resources to acquire what they want? So psychographics breaks people down even further into lifestyles through VALS. We have the belongers, which is 38% of the US population, and these people are reluctant to change, church-going TV watchers. And then you have the achievers, which is 20% of the population. These people are prosperous, inner-directed consumers. They make their own decisions and they don't watch much television. Then you have the societally conscious, which is 11% of the population. These people are politically active and aware. They're upscale and are directed. They read instead of watching television. Emulators, about 10% of the population, and they are aspiring for the good life, but they're not exactly sure how to accomplish the good life, so they are very prone to suggestion, and in some cases are status seekers. Experientials is 5% of the population, and these are venturesome people that want to experience life, try new things. They usually come from an upscale background. Then you have the I am me's, 3%, and they try to set themselves apart, but end up in conforming to some sort of subculture. This group is very susceptible to advertising because they're trying to find themselves, and the book cites punk rock as a good example of the I am me's group. Survivors is a small group. These are pensioners that try to make ends meet, and that's their main objective in life. And then you have sustainers who live from paycheck to paycheck and occasionally splurge on something, and they have little hope for improving their situation, and advertisers don't pay much attention to sustainers. And then at the very top, you have the integrateds, which is 2% of the population of creative and prosperous people. They like to try new things, and they do try new things. They're kind of seen as having it all. So many people see advertising as a necessary evil or a damaging force in our society. One argument is that advertising makes people buy things that they do not want. That advertising creates the want by making items desirable and imposing a philosophy of futility on consumers. This is out of fashion, so I need a new one, even though there's nothing wrong with the old one. I don't think that this is true. I don't think that we don't buy things that we don't want, but I think we do buy things that we do not need. And people have a responsibility for themselves. When we look at society now and how many things we own, let's just say I could support this statement with my basement full of things that I don't need, like a water cooler and decorating fad items from days gone by. Like at the time I felt that I needed a product or that it would improve my life in some way, and now it's just a piece of junk in the basement that has to be sorted out and thrown away or used or sold. Another controversy is that advertising drives up the cost of items. And on the other side of this argument are advertisers who claim that advertising drives up demands for items, causing them to be mass-produced, and then in turn drives down the cost of products. And this defense is right in some cases, but not in all cases. Some marketing campaigns are designed to make people pay more for certain items by marketing them as the best or high-end, even when they're made from the same things as the lower-end, less marketed products. You see this a lot in like cosmetics, where a brand name's power can cause a dramatic price range in a certain product. Consumers like more expensive items as well because it makes them feel like they have purchased the best or belong to an elite group that can afford such items. Advertising helps sell bad products. This is another controversy. And while this is true to a point, but a bad product will usually die out in the marketplace because not only does advertising sell products, but so does word of mouth. And if the word on the street is that the product is junk, no matter how well it's marketed, it will usually disappear. Advertising is a waste of money. Well, this is true in some cases, but really getting products to the marketplace and causing our money to switch hands boosts our consumer economy. Advertising also subsidizes a lot of our media. So we get a lot of our information from the media, and without it, we would have to pay a lot more money for our media to have access to information. So it's a cycle. Products promote widespread access to information, and then that information becomes diluted by selling. A big and current problem in advertising is the amount of it being infused into the public. We are inundated, saturated with large numbers of consumer messages each day. And this constant blast of commercials leads to an advertising problem called clutter. Clutter is a word for what happens when too much information is thrown at us at once and we miss half the message. They drown each other out. Effective ads have to break through this clutter problem and get to the heart of the consumer quickly, and that can be a real challenge. So one way of breaking through is making advertisements more interesting, sometimes even more interesting than the media that they are presented with. And one great example of this is the amount of people who watch the Super Bowl just to see the new ads. In the US, adults are exposed to approximately 150 advertisements each day in one form or another, and I suspect it's probably more. And adults are exposed to 789 TV ads per week. Advertising to children has long been followed by controversy, but advertising targeted at children has done nothing but increase. There is ethical issues when dealing with children's psyches as they are not fully developed, and kids are exposed to over 20,000 television ads per year, and now they are inundated through product placement in their schools, mobile phones, and in video games. So that number has grown massively with new media types emerging all around us. The food ads directed at children are another hotbed of controversy. After the cigarette companies were taken out, the next cause became fighting obesity through attacking the junk food industry's play to market unhealthy items to kids. Studies have been done to indicate that children nagging their parents for a product or service motivates their parents to buy products. And I have a short blurb from the movie The Corporation here that I will make available to you on Schoology. Integrated marketing communication, or IMC, is an overall strategy for getting messages about a product or service to the consumers. And it involves everything from advertising, public relations, sales, and the interactive media that will accompany a campaign. And this type of overall strategy has emerged out of the changing marketplace The IMC helps build the brand in a certain way and places them in the correct spots to reach the right groups of the audience. It's a multi-platform, cross-platform approach to marketing. An ad on the TV that corresponds with an ad on the web, which corresponds to the magazine campaign, which is nationally honored by the company promoting it, or interactive games like McDonald's Monopoly game, where you can gather pieces from any McDonald's and play them on a printed board or online version, and it's advertised on TV. So it's engaging on many different media across many different platforms. So let's look at the future of advertising. TV audiences for commercials will probably keep declining with devices like the DVR, and so advertisers will make use of platforms that are drawing viewers in, like mobile phones have been zeroed in on recently. People carry them with them everywhere, and ads can be tailored to the individual, and most of the cell phones today have some type of internet capabilities and are linking data about people through cloud and online storage. Product placement in videos and movies has shown to be very effective, with products even interwoven into the plot, and this is where the term product integration comes from. The filmmakers are writing products into the scripts to give them an integrated, seamless, natural feeling within the film. Like Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, Talladega Nights. So the products were written into the script and seemed natural in there. They used real products. In the new emerging long tail of advertising world, Google has stepped up with innovative ad techniques that are becoming more and more popular. AdWords is the type of advertising that allows advertisers to purchase keywords to attach their ads to on the web, and relevant content gets posted on the side of the pages you browse based on those keywords that you enter in your Google searches. AdSense are click-through advertising. The program searches websites and blogs for certain words and then places the ad on the side of your web page. And each click earns the owner of the page that you're looking at, and Google money, and the advertisers pay per click. You can choose to monetize your site with AdSense and generate income from your website. And there have been problems with people enlisting friends to generate income for them by having them click on the ads numerous times. So the future of advertising is that it's not going anywhere, and it seems very savvy at adapting to different media and changes in society. There's a link on the bottom to a video called Century of Self, which I will make available on the Schoology site. Thanks for listening, and that's all I have for Chapter 11, Advertising. Have a good day.